But Rob Wittman, yesterday, in true form, has grown a shutdown beard. It is a shutdown beard. Now, can it be like Jim Harden's beard? I think so. Can it be like Dallas Keuchel's beard? I think so. Because this shutdown might go on for a while. And he's got the shutdown beard going. And it's pretty cool. It's like he's making his silent statement. It's so Rob Wittman-esque. And guess who's joining us now to tell us all about the Nancy Pelosi show and his shutdown beard? Congressman, Republican, 1st District. Now, I have to say the ranking member of the Sea Power Committee, no longer chairman, so sad. But he is the ranking member, and he's still doing a good job. And he's with us now. Congressman Rob Wittman, shutdown beard Wittman, great to have you.
John, it's great to be with you this morning.
Okay, look, I got to talk about your beard, and then we'll go to politics because I checked this beard out because I'm there in the, and I see you there doing the voting. And by the way, you voted for McCarthy, and see you doing. I'm like, I heard about your shutdown beard, but then when I saw it, I'm like, okay, wow, that's going to be like Jim Harden's beard. That's going to be like Harden. I'm a Houston Rockets fan, fired up because they beat Golden State last night, and I hate the Warriors. And so Harden had another 47 points. Is this going to be a Harden beard?
Well, John, I tell you, it was an outcome of my trip to Afghanistan. I was there for a week and left the razor at home, and then it was no shave November, and I just decided to continue with it. There are a number of other members who have grown a beard, and so we were all talking yesterday about what the significance is behind it. Everybody has a little bit different story. Mine was just a continuation of my trip there to Afghanistan, and obviously there are lots of other situations that you could associate that me growing a beard with, but it really goes back just to an extension of my trip there to Afghanistan. So I haven't determined how long the beard will stay, but it's been with me now for about a month.
I have 2 questions, right?
Yep.
Both of them critical beard questions. Number 1, can you commit to not shaving until the shutdown's over?
Well, that was suggested yesterday with a group of us that were standing around saying, "Hey, listen, we ought to keep the beards and make sure that the business of the nation gets done." So I would say that's a high likelihood that we'll keep it until we make sure that we get the nation's work done, get the government funded, and make sure that we get border security, which includes a wall, done in a way that protects the American people. That's what they put us there for, and that's what they expect. So.
Okay, so officially then you're committing no shave until the shutdown's over.
I will officially commit to no shave until we get the government funded and get border security properly taken care of. Yes.
All right. So we have the official Rob Wittman shutdown beard that we're going to be tracking. All right. Now here's the other important question. This is really the one that matters. All right, Catherine. Now, what does she make of this whole thing?
Well, believe me, I wouldn't have this beard on my face if Catherine didn't give it her acceptance. So she's okay with it, and so is my daughter, Devin. But as I'm sure you saw yesterday, my granddaughter Morgan was with me, and Morgan does not like the beard. So she is one of the family that is not a fan of the beard on granddad. But my daughter Devin and wife Catherine are okay with it.
I tell you what, I love your shutdown beard, and we're going to be tracking it. So let's get to the shutdown. So, watching this thing yesterday, Congressman, it was bittersweet because I hated to see you lose your chairmanship and go out of the majority, but she's got quite the raucous caucus going on there. 15 of her members didn't vote for her, but that's all of shenanigans game. They're going to do what she says anyway. But I had Hogan Gidley on yesterday, who really the deputy press secretary in the White House, and he really blasted her demeanor in the White House. He said she has no interest in the facts. She cut Secretary Nielsen off when she was trying to talk to her. She was dismissive of the president. Basically, she said, no deal. I'm not caving. There's no money for the wall. I don't care what the facts are. How do you negotiate somebody that's taking a position like that? How do you get this done?
Well, John, our jobs as legislators is to get the American people done. And one of the things that we are required to do, I believe, constitutionally, is to provide security to the American people, both in the homeland and protecting this nation's interests abroad. So it is a constitutional responsibility to do that. It is our job to get things done. If you go in to doing any of the work, and especially someone in a leadership position like now Speaker Pelosi, and you refuse to get the job done, you refuse to move and actually compromise, which is, let's face it, is what legislating is all about. You never get 100% of what you want. If you refuse to do that and you are willing to just say we will in relation to waiting 100% of what we want, then I just do not believe that that's what the American people expect of their legislature. And I don't think it's what they expect of their leaders, whoever it may be. And listen, the voters spoke, and the Democrats have elected Nancy Pelosi as their speaker. But I believe people across the nation expect her to get things done and do expect that compromise is part of what has to happen in Congress. If you are intractable and say, no, it's either going to be 100% of what I want or 0%, that does not create an atmosphere or a situation where the United States House of Representatives can be effective, because then you're going to find yourself at loggerheads at every turn, because this system is not set up to where people get 100% of what they want 100% of the time. It's just not designed to work that way. Our founding fathers designed it to where compromise has to happen. And, John, this is a perfect example about what I've been preaching all along, and that is if we get our work done on time, we don't find ourselves at these crisis points. In other words, get this done through the normal deliberations where you can have reasonable discussions and you get these things done on time. And that is, Congress should have stayed in town in August so we don't find ourselves with these continuing resolutions and short-term funding mechanisms that now get held hostage to these other issues. Those things, I think, absolutely have to happen and have to be a process change in Congress in order for things to get done the way that they are supposed to get done.
So yesterday, it looked like Speaker Pelosi, Congressman, was attempting to put the brakes on impeachment. Because, look, she's a very astute politician. Say about her what you want. She's a very good politician. Yet, one of her California associates, colleagues, Democrat Representative Brad Sherman, immediately moved to introduce articles of impeachment against President Trump, including allegations of obstruction of justice. As you know, 66 House Democrats backed impeachment last year. What's the deal here?
Well, I know what Speaker Pelosi spoke about yesterday in talking about impeachment, talking about indicting the president, but she kind of covered herself on both sides. I think what will ultimately determine what happens is the folks within the Democratic caucus, and I think that there is a lot of effort there on behalf of many of her members, both members that have returned and new members that have a high degree of interest in these efforts against the president, including impeachment. I think that it'll be interesting to see how she navigates that mindset within her caucus as to what needs to happen. And remember that if there are enough people in the caucus that say it needs to happen, it really is taken out of her purview. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this shakes out in the months to come and what she does with the caucus there. You know, you point out the vote yesterday was a lot closer than what was portrayed as far as the numbers. If you look in numbers about who didn't vote for the speaker and who voted present, it was a very, very narrow margin, and that I think will make it a challenge for her to manage the caucus and to get things done. So time will be the ultimate judge of how things lay out with this new caucus, and then how they will manage the House, or how Nancy Pelosi will manage the House, and then how will they get things done. You know, her job is to find 218 votes. It's great to be the speaker, but it's a different thing to be able to manage members of a caucus and be able to find 218 votes in order to get things done. All you have to do is to ask John Boehner and Paul Ryan how much of a challenge that is, and Nancy Pelosi, I think, will find some of the same challenges.
15 people in a caucus voted against her for chairman, right? 3 voted present, which is not a ringing endorsement. So she's got, potentially 18 defectors. That gives her a very slim majority. No room for error. My contention, though, is, Congressman Wittman, is that a lot of these votes were just for show. It was like show and tell. Like Abigail Spanberger ran around saying, I'm not going to vote for Pelosi. But now that's done. She didn't vote for her. She met a campaign promise, and now they're going to do whatever she says because they want to get committee chairs. You know how the whole thing works. So I really have no confidence in that. Let's get to Afghanistan, Congressman. We're with Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District of Virginia. He is now the ranking member of the Sea Power Readiness Committee in Congress in the House of Representatives. Congressman, you went to Afghanistan for a week. We've been there 18 years. No way out. The president campaigned to get out of there. Then McMaster got in. We called it Master's War. I was not a fan of this. We put another 5,000 troops there. McMaster and Mattis talked the president into it. Another year goes by, no results, and the president says, I've had enough. I want to get out. You were just there for a week. Tell us what the deal is in Afghanistan now and what your position is.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. I was with a congressional delegation there. We met with President Ghani, had great conversations with him. Also met with General Miller, who is the commander of Operation Resolute Support, which is the current United States operation there to assist the Afghans in securing their country. The president's South Asia policy, I think, is being very, very well received in Afghanistan. President Ghani likes the idea that it's a results-driven strategy and that it doesn't create an in perpetuity presence of the United States there. I think the Afghans want to find milestones that they can accomplish, that we can reduce United States presence there. So from President Ghani, I think he was very appreciative of what the president's trying to do. What also General Miller is trying to do is to make sure that the resources that we are sending there are being properly utilized and that we are reducing the amount of resources both in troops and in dollars that we send to Afghanistan, because that also cannot continue. I give General Miller and General Rainey, who is in charge of all the logistics there, a lot of credit. John, they have done a tremendous amount. As you know, for years, there was the issue of what are called ghost soldiers being paid. In other words, you show that you have, let's say, 100,000 soldiers, but you